Welcome back to CIA Declassified. Today we ascend to the edge of the atmosphere where the air is too thin to breathe and the secrets of an empire are laid bare. The year is 1954. The Cold War is freezing over and President Dwight D. Eisenhower is flying blind. The Soviet Union is a black hole of information and rumors of a massive bomber gap are haunting the halls of the Pentagon. To find the truth, the agency needed a plane that could fly higher than any radar could track or any missile could reach. They needed a ghost that could sail through the stratosphere untouched. This was the birth of Project AQUATONE. The birth of the U-2 required a level of secrecy that gave rise to a legend. Groom Lake, better known as Area 51. Project AQUATONE was a joint venture between the CIA and the Air Force, led by Richard Bissell and the legendary engineer Clarence Kelly Johnson of Lockheed. A quote from Kelly Johnson, chief engineer. "We are building a bird that is more a glider than a jet. It will fly in near space conditions where the fuel is nearly at its boiling point and the wings are on the verge of snapping." End quote. The U-2 was designed to operate at 70,000 feet, twice the altitude of commercial airliners. This necessitated the first full-pressure suits for pilots, the direct ancestors of the suits worn by Apollo astronauts. A quote from Richard Bissell, CIA project director. "AQUATONE was the first time the agency took total control over a major weapons system. We weren't just buying a plane, we were building an eye in the sky." End quote. To keep the project hidden, the agency paid Lockheed in cash, literally delivering bags of money to the Skunk Works facility to avoid any traceable government paper trail during the development phase. A quote from a 1955 internal CIA progress report. "The pilot is essentially sitting on a fuel tank with wings. The margin for error at altitude is so slim, we call it the coffin corner. Move too slow and ye stall. Move too fast and the airframe disintegrates." End quote. The U-2 utilized a specialized low volatility fuel known as LF-1A, which was essentially a highly refined version of kerosene developed specifically to prevent engine flameouts in the thin freezing air of the upper atmosphere. A quote from Edwin Land, creator of the Polaroid camera and a CIA consultant. "We are not just taking pictures, we are collecting a census of Soviet military might from a height where the pilot is closer to the stars than to the ground." End quote. During early testing at Groom Lake, the U-2 was so high and reflective that it caused a massive spike in UFO sightings by commercial pilots who couldn't conceive of a man-made object flying at such extreme altitudes. The logs show that the U-2's wingspan was so immense that it required chase cars, souped-up sports cars driven by other pilots to speed down the runway and catch the wings during landing. A quote from Francis Gary Powers. At that height, the sky turns black even in the middle of the day. You feel like the only living thing in a dead, silent universe." End quote. The agency created a fake weather research cover story for the U-2, painting some early models with NASA-style markings to explain away any accidental sightings by the public or foreign observers. Technical blueprints reveal the U-2 camera system could carry over 12,000 feet of film, allowing for a single flight to photograph a 200-mile wide strip of Soviet territory stretching from the Black Sea to the Arctic. Records indicate that the CIA spent over $1 billion in today's currency on the AQUATONE project before the first operational flight ever took place, making it one of the most expensive intelligence gambles of the era. A quote from a declassified 1960 presidential briefing. The U-2 has provided the definitive proof that the bomber gap does not exist. The Soviets are bluffing, and we have the photographs to prove it. End quote. But even with the U-2 declassified, some flight logs remain in the dark. For instance, the section titled Atmospheric Anomalies contains the highest concentration of redactions in the AQUATONE files. Over 900 pages of altitude encounter manifest are completely blacked out. Why is the view from 70,000 feet still a secret in 2026? Get ready for the theory of the dragon tail. Speculation suggests Project AQUATONE was actually a cover for alien interception. This theory claims the redactions hide the unidentified object logs from 1956, alleging the U-2 was used to chase non-terrestrial craft that were hovering over Soviet nuclear sites, and the black bars hide the photos of metallic discs that are still classified as national security threats. What if the planes weren't empty? A dark rumor suggests the CIA used the U-2 to test atmospheric dispersal agents on unsuspecting populations below. The theory claims the redactions in the payload variant section hide the testing of bioaerosols meant to suppress political dissent or track human movement from the stratosphere. Some imagine the 900 redacted pages of the Soviet reaction logs hide the fact that the U-2 pilots actually saw moon bases or orbital platforms that the public wasn't supposed to know existed. Theorists looking at the blacked out pilot conditioning logs argue the agency was testing psychic surveillance, where pilots were trained to use the high altitude isolation to remote view Kremlin secrets. Rumor says the polar route redactions hide evidence that the U-2 found an opening at the North Pole leading to an inner Earth civilization, and the planes were monitoring who was coming and going. There's a wild idea that the redacted manifests describe a time slip where the U-2's speed and altitude caused pilots to return to base before they had even taken off. Gossip around the unmanned interface files suggests the 1950s U-2s were actually controlled by biocomputers, and the pilots were just biological backups in case the machine failed. Speculation persists that the atmospheric anomalies section is redacted because it contains the original formulas for weather control chemicals that the U-2 began spraying as early as 1958. Some believe the blacked out frequency hopping logs prove the U-2 was broadcasting subliminal signals to the Soviet population to trigger a democratic uprising. A fringe theory suggests the U-2's cameras weren't just taking photos, but were using bioimaging to record the brainwaves of every Soviet leader they flew over. Rumor has it that the redactions and the navigational data hide the fact that the U-2 found ancient monoliths on the ocean floor that are only visible from 70,000 feet. Lastly, in the section regarding system retirement, some whisper that the original AQUATONE fleet didn't retire, but was moved to a lunar hangar to serve as a secret space force. Was Project AQUATONE a success? Tactically, it was a monumental success. For 4 years, the U-2 provided the only reliable intelligence on Soviet nuclear capabilities. It debunked the bomber gap and prevented a nuclear flashpoint based on false data. Strategically, it was a double-edged sword. While it provided the truth, the eventual shoot-down of Francis Gary Powers destroyed a high-level summit and chilled Cold War relations for years. However, it led directly to the development of the SR-71 Blackbird and modern satellite reconnaissance. As far as technological and operational breakthroughs are concerned, the angel in the sky paved the way for the space age. For instance, Groom Lake Infrastructure, the creation of Area 51 as the world's premier secret testing facility. Pressure Suit Engineering, the development of life support systems that allowed humans to survive at the edge of space. Precision optics, breakthroughs in high-resolution aerial photography that could resolve objects as small as a person from 70,000 feet. And fuel chemistry, the creation of JP7 fuel, designed to remain stable in extreme temperature and low-pressure environments. Project AQUATONE reminds us that the higher you go, the more the world looks like a chessboard. As the files reveal, the U-2 wasn't just a plane, it was a god complex with a camera. Thanks for listening. Join us next time as we examine Project Main Core. Since the 1980s, rumors have swirled about a continuity of government database. Project Main Core is a secretive database alleged to contain the names of 8 million dangerous Americans for immediate detention in a national emergency. We'll uncover the FEMA integration manifest, the red list logs, and the moment the agency realized that the best way to win a war is to arrest the opposition before the first shot is fired. Join us next time for the list of the lost. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.